But first, former England and Manchester United striker Wayne Rooney has been confirmed as the new manager of Birmingham. He's agreed terms on a 3.5-year contract and has vowed to take the club to the next level. Rooney landed back in the UK yesterday after he left DC United by mutual consent on Sunday. Birmingham sacked John Eustace, stressing they wanted to implement a winning mentality and a culture of ambition across the entire football club. This is what Rooney's had to say this morning. I have been building my managerial career, putting myself in challenging environments to get me ready for this opportunity. It's a project that gives me a sense of purpose and I can't wait to get started. We will create a winning culture here with an identity that gets Blues fans on their feet. My job is to elevate the club to the next level and I can't wait to get started. I know what the expectations are and our job is to deliver. Rooney's former England teammate Ashley Cole has joined his backroom staff. Cole, who helped England's under-21s to Euros success this summer, will keep his job with the national side. It's the same situation for another of Rooney's former teammates, John Eustace. He's currently the assistant coach for the Republic of Ireland, but will now team up with Rooney alongside his international job. For more on this, we're joined by Sky Sports' David Prutton. I'm pleased to say, David, good afternoon to you. Give us your reaction then to the past 24 hours at Birmingham.
Lovely to chat to you, mate. It wasn't a very well-kept secret, was it? We saw what happened off the back end of the MLS season with regards to DC United not getting into the playoffs. There were murmurings going into the weekend. Given the situation at Birmingham City, I think it's incredibly harsh on John Eustace. I don't think there's many people, if you consider yourself in football or out football or just a football fan, that wouldn't see that as a harsh decision that's been made. It's been made with one goal in mind. I think you get rid of a manager who's taken a team to 6th in the Championship and bring someone else in because you believe the next person's got to get you promoted. I think Wayne Rooney's got to get Birmingham City promoted, given the language around the dismissal and the new appointment. There were words about misalignment of objectives with regards to John Eustace and the way the club was moving. Well, they've won the last 2 games. They're in the playoffs. They're in a highly competitive football division. And you would think from the outside looking in, that was going in the right direction. I'm not party to any form of the minutiae that comes with the discussions of CEOs and owners and board members at all. Knowing football like I do, I know that type of thing is way above my pay grade and way above my understanding at times. But if you were looking at it from a purely football point of view, you think for a good job that John Eustace has done, he's been given the sack. And Wayne Rooney comes in, huge, stellar reputation, of course, as a player. Troubled times at Derby that he did himself very proud working his way through alongside Liam Rossini, who we know has gone on to do very, very good things with Hull City. Goes out to America to work in MLS with DC United, comes back maybe with a broadened mind with regards to how football clubs are run and football in different countries. But the remit is clear. Birmingham City have brought him in to get promoted.
How difficult is it to assess that job at Derby? You touched upon it there. Do you feel the extenuating circumstances make it difficult to reach a conclusion?
I think you only know how tough a job like that is, Ed, when you're actually right in the middle of it. Having spoken to lots of different managers that have been players that do a lot of education of themselves and go through the different strata of qualifications that you need to work in the very top levels of English football, only knowing what that's like, he's been right in the belly of the beast and dealing with it day on day, dealing with the words administration hanging over a football club as large as Derby County, going from being a player to going back into the dugout and trying to lead them from that side. That was a change with regards to his professional environment. So I think, I'm not saying it was a free hit by any stretch of the imagination. That would be a disrespectful thing to say to Derby County as an entity. But given what he did, I think we saw real kind of bright spots of what he could achieve. DC United, as I said, is a different kettle of fish, a different structure, of course, over in MLS, where it's based around the playoff system, which is all post-season off the back of what you do in the regular season. So I think he comes back into English football, even though there is the kind of mitigation for what happened at Derby, with a point to prove managerially. If he's got ambitions of managing in the Premier League, this next one's got to be a success. Yeah,
in terms of proving himself, the brief we understand is to deliver what Birmingham's owners have called no fear football. What do you think that looks like?
I don't know. Winning games, is that fearless football? I don't want to. As I said, when you are listening and reading statements and kind of structures that are put in place of what a football ownership wants from a football club, then they've got every right. If you're pumping millions of pounds into a football club and you want to be entertained, who am I to say why you're doing that? Because that's exactly what they've come in for. They've come in for success. And if you can be entertained along the way, as we know in football, sometimes the two are mutually exclusive. So when it comes to that, the statement of playing in a certain way and getting results, I'm always a little bit wary of that because I think results do will out. I know that Birmingham City fans, to say they've been through the mill would be an understatement. They've looked at what their team's achieved on the pitch, the wonderful job that John did, giving them the highest finish since 2016, the sheer volume of players 18 and younger that he's put into that side, higher numbers than anywhere across Europe. There's a lot to like about the way he approached it, the fact that geographically he's not a million miles away. But in football, sometimes sentiment can be the last thing on a checklist, can't it? So they made a change. We saw Tom Brady at the start of the season, this huge global sporting figurehead in and around the Birmingham area, looking at what potentially the team in the city could afford him from a business point of view. It's up to them. They've made their decision. They're going to have to live and die by it. But I wouldn't be surprised to see John Eustace pitch up at another championship club and do very, very well. And that would be chastening if Birmingham City don't do well. But under Wayne Rooney, they've got a manager who is gloriously ambitious. Ashley Cole, John O'Shea, trusted lieutenants, men that have played at the very highest level. If you don't walk into a training ground and see those three and think, my game's got to go up a few notches, then you're in the wrong sport.
Prutch, you said the expectation at the top was for Rooney to now get promotion. Do you believe that Birmingham have the players to achieve that?
I think what I've seen so far, they've got a collective that can compete with the rest of the division. I think Leicester look absolutely fantastic with a deep squad. Ipswich Town are bursting ahead with the momentum garnered off promotion last season. Preston we saw fall away at the end of last season when it came to mounting a playoff push. Sunderland chastened, of course, by that defeat against Borough, but a wonderful young team that Tony's put together. And Leeds, we would assume that they would be up there. The other stellar names in and around that mix, down to Southampton and West Brom, you would feel would be in the final knocking. So I think Birmingham, so far, have done incredibly well to keep up the pace with the other teams that they're talking about. Not in any way is that said to be condescending to what Birmingham City are about or the squad that they've got at their disposal. But if you bring a manager and a man in such as Wayne Rooney that has played for glorious football clubs, that has achieved and climbed mountainous peaks as a professional player, he's not come in to make sure that Birmingham City are in the top half of the championship. He begins with them in sixth in the playoffs. Anything less than the playoffs would be a failure, I think.
You touched upon the name factor there, Ashley Cole and John O'Shea backing Rooney up. What does that bring as a professional? You alluded to it there, the presence, how much extra time do you get because of the status?
I think that's a good question. You do get a little bit of leeway. You don't if the results don't reflect that. If there are whispers of discontent in training, footballers, they get cliches thrown at them for good and bad reasons. But they can sniff out people that aren't quite up to the standard when it comes to coaching. They can sniff out someone who doesn't feel comfortable in that environment. I've only ever heard good things from about Wayne Rooney, Ashley Cole and John O'Shea when it comes to that. And having played against, with, in and around them, I'm sure if you asked them my name, they'd just have a blank expression, Ed. But I do remember being in the same vicinity as them. Very, very demanding professional footballers, very high quality. And you look at the environments that they've worked in and played in, that is ingrained deep into their footballing bones. And hopefully, if you are that player that moves into the coaching capacity, I mean, that's the great challenge for great players, isn't it? Can you tell a group of people that are nowhere near as good as you what to do and get them to do it without any form of inferiority complex for the players to have to worry about? That is the great challenge for Wayne Rooney. Can you inspire? And from what I heard about his time at Derby, as I said, Liam Rossini working closely alongside him, he was very much part of the rank and file. There was no real us and them. And having seen and heard of these two players in John O'Shea and Ashley Cole, now coaches at close quarters, I've seen no reason why that wouldn't be exactly the same case with them. And as a trio, I think it's a fantastic place to learn your game, because if I was a young footballer at Birmingham City, and there are many of those, I'd be boring the life out of them, peppering them with questions, asking them about days gone by, about different training sessions, about different managers, different players that they've come across, all to aid my progression as a footballer. So, as I said, the cynic in you looks at this decision, as Ed, and says John Eustace has been very, very, very hard done by. The person that's been in football since he was 16 kind of says, okay, let's see what happens now. And they've got a wonderful basis to build from. And the foundation that John's left in there is something that they have to build on. The only way for them has got to be upwards. There can't be any of this bobbing around, drifting back towards mid-table. It's got to be looking at that picture at the end of the season, if me and you get to chat at the end of the season, mate, which would be lovely, and say, look, they're finished in the top 6. They're getting ready for a playoff push.
Let's hope we get to talk. The transfer window opens in a couple of months, which is incredible, isn't it? Because we've just had the Ferrari on Sky Sports.
Have you got the countdown on yet?
We haven't got it yet. No, we haven't got it yet. It's making me feel old every time I see that countdown. What do you think about attracting top players? Will that be a big factor, the Rooney name, or is it position specific? Will it be strikers that are more attracted? How do you look at that?
There's 3 prongs to this. It's position specific. It's who Wayne Rooney and even more so Craig Arnold further up the food chain, who he gets in the door, and also money. Have they got money to spend? So far, the money that has been diverted has gone towards those real tangibles for Birmingham City fans. How do we make St Andrews look like it did? How do we improve on what we've got? It's a cracking atmosphere. I know people launch platitudes at a football club when it's in troubled times, but the amount of times that I managed to play at St Andrews, it was an intimidating atmosphere. It was always lively. The cut of the jib of the natives from the second city is a joy to behold. You knew exactly where you stood, good, bad, or indifferent. So that needs to be re-energised. This appointment needs to make sure that the good work that John's done is carried on. And I think after that, it's whether this money, this new ownership model, affords the type of money that can bring in the type of players that do get you over the line. We can get a bit blasé sometimes about teams climbing out of the Championship into the Premier League and talk about the gap between the 2 divisions. That's for a whole other chat. But it is a monumental achievement for clubs to get out of the Championship. And you look at years gone by, the type of clubs that have done it. We've talked about Blackpool in the Premier League. We've talked about Huddersfield Town in the Premier League. We've talked about Hull City, Luton Town climbing into the Premier League. And I mean that with just utter respect and admiration when I name these football clubs. Birmingham City were part of the furniture, weren't they, of the top level of English football. They'll see what's going on at Villa. That'll stick in the craw. And they'll look at this new situation with new ownership, new management, and say, why not? The why not comes and is challenged by what they see on the football pitch. 2 wins on the spin. Next up, a familiar face for Wayne Rooney and Michael Carrick and Borough.
Yeah, what a big match that's going to be. David Prutton, thank you very much. Great to speak to you.
Pleasure, Ed. Anytime, mate.